Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing well. Now, before we get started with the video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the bottom right hand corner. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about the Mike Tyson Chris Jericho brawl that ended AEW Dynamite this week. Now, we did a video on this yesterday. That is on the channel, so if you go to our channel you can find that, or the link is in the description below. There'll be a card that pops up so you can go and watch that there. So I don't want to chew my food twice too much on the subject, but basically in that video we speculated that there could be a Mike Tyson AEW match in the future, and after last night's events it certainly looks like that is the case. Now, it was announced prior to the show, and I believe it was announced Sunday after Double or Nothing, the night prior, that Mike Tyson was going to appear on AEW Dynamite this week live from an empty Daily's Place, well, slightly empty Daily's Place, once again, and they hyped it up several times throughout the show. And to be honest, time was ticking away. We knew that it was most likely going to be the main event segment, but as you were looking at the clock, you knew that also there was this Inner Circle pep rally that they had hyped up throughout the show as well. So you knew those two things most likely were going to happen at the same time, and something was going to happen. So let's talk a bit about the Inner Circle's pep rally. Now, after their Stadium Stampede defeat to the Elite at the weekend, they decided, Chris Jericho, the leader of the Inner Circle, decided we need to have a pep rally. We need to build ourselves back up. We need to get some momentum back in the Inner Circle. And to be honest, it was great. I really enjoyed the pep rally part of this segment. You had cheerleaders come out and sort of line the entranceway for the Inner Circle as they were announced, but they were introduced by the head cheerleader, the best cheerleader ever, and that was one Vicky Guerrero. Now, we saw Vicky Guerrero at Double or Nothing in the crowd at the weekend. I believe she's been to a couple of AEW events in the past. She did color commentary on Dark sometime last year as well. And by all accounts, since she did that appearance for Dark, WWE has completely cut ties with her. She's not even allowed to have WWE superstars on her podcast or anything like that, which sucks. That really sucks. It's so petty from WWE, in my opinion. But I mean, what do you expect from a competitor? I don't know, but whatever. But it was really nice to see her on the TV screen again. Vicky Guerrero, to me, is one of the best characters to happen in the last 15 years. I loved Vicky Guerrero in WWE. People, hated her, and the amount of heat she got and the boos. It just you'll struggle to find someone that gets more heat from a live crowd than Vicky Guerrero. So it was great to see her back on television, and just even in that role, she introduced the Inner Circle without using a microphone, and full on announcement. She didn't have a microphone, and she was still that loud. It was fantastic. So the Inner Circle are in the ring, and they're handing out presents to each other to try and build themselves back up. Sammy Guevara, of course, he was on crutches because he had an injured leg from when Kenny Omega hit the one-winged angel out of the stands at the Stadium Stampede match. Chris Jericho gave him the Hit Me Up mobile that Sammy Guevara could ride around with. You had Ortiz get earphones because, of course, Matt Hardy rang the bell in the Stadium Stampede match, and Ortiz apparently couldn't hear, but as soon as he put the headphones on, he could hear now, once again, which was nice to see. You had Jake Hager recite a poem that he wrote, which was, just superb. Go back and watch this poem from Jake Hager. Now, the funny thing with that is, obviously, they've had Jake Hager for the longest time, ever since really he debuted in AEW, be this sort of the heavy for the Inner Circle, but actually like the big, strong, silent type. Like, he didn't speak a word. He would just stare at the camera. In fact, they cut promos and vignettes where Hager would just stare at the camera. But this time he went full Heidenreich and recited a poem, which was great. I really loved that. And this concludes with Sammy Guevara saying to Chris Jericho, Le Champion of AEW, that he's got him a platter. He's got him a cheese platter and, of course, a little bit of the bubbly for Chris Jericho. But then he lifts it up and the bubbly's empty. The bubbly's disappeared and the cheese platter is ruined, which is the cue for Mike Tyson to come out. Now, Chris Jericho prior to this, I shouldn't get too ahead of myself, Chris Jericho prior to this had said one thing he really wants is Mike Tyson's head on a silver platter. He talked about how on a Monday night 10 years ago, they didn't reference Monday Night Raw, but everyone knew it was Monday Night Raw. Chris Jericho talks about how Mike Tyson betrayed him Of course, at the time, Mike Tyson was the guest host of Monday Night Raw. And the main event was Chris Jericho and Mike Tyson against DX. Mike Tyson was going to get revenge against DX. Of course, Mike Tyson turned on DX at WrestleMania 14. It was playing off of that during Chris Jericho's feud with DX when he was tag team partners with the Big Show, Jericho. Even though Chris Jericho wouldn't like you to call him that, he demanded that they didn't have a tag team name. But he says, yes, I want Mike Tyson's head on a silver platter. He betrayed me, and I still haven't got over it 10 years ago, even though it was in a different company. And is that even relevant in AEW's world? I don't know. But Guevara says, I'll try and cheer you up. Here's some bubbly, and here's a cheese platter. But no bubbly, no cheese, which brings out Mike Tyson and his entourage. The entourage included MMA fighters and legends. You had Vitor Belfort, Rashad Evans, Henry Cejudo, the recently retired Henry Cejudo, if you believe that he is, of course, retired, two-division UFC world champion. So a big deal having these guys on the show for AEW. It's certainly, maybe not mainstream coverage, but certainly in terms of the sporting world and sporting media, having Henry Cejudo and an MMA legend like Vitor Belfort on the show that's a big deal. That's a big deal. But that wasn't the guy that stole the show in Mike Tyson's entourage. This weird panda guy. Now, I call him a panda guy because he was this guy who was in a white t-shirt with face paint around his eyes. He looked like a panda. He was just, he insisted, like, the attraction here is Mike Tyson and these MMA legends. You've got, combat sport legends coming into AEW. That's the shot there, isn't it? Combat sport versus the inner circle here. Mike Tyson versus Chris Jericho. But this panda guy just insisted on getting into the shot, getting in front of Mike Tyson at some points, getting in front of the likes of Henry Cejudo, whose name is all over the sporting media at the moment, considering he's saying he's retired and he's negotiating with the UFC, etc., etc. But no, the panda guy needed to get in front of him. And his eyes were wide. I mean, I don't want to speculate, but I'm thinking he had more than cheese and bubbly backstage. Because, I mean, this guy, and it was distracting, it was weird, and it was uncomfortable. It was just... Now, since then, because no one knew at the time as well, I must say this, because, of course, I was on social media at the time covering the show. No one knew who this guy was at the time. Everyone said, who the hell's this guy? Is he just snuck in backstage? Has he even been tested? For something, because something looks wrong with him. We've since found out he's an actor and a producer in Hollywood. Like that explains something. I mean, it doesn't explain anything. Like, they got the combat sport legends here and just a guy who looks completely off his head. So, I mean, that was weird. But they come face to face with Jericho in the inner circle, and Chris Jericho demands an apology. He says, you betrayed me 10 years ago. You knocked me out on national television. I want an apology. Now, this is when, again, it got very, very weird. In response to this, Mike Tyson just laughs. He doesn't sort of play anything up. He just laughs and rips his shirt off somehow. I mean, he had great difficulty in ripping his shirt off, I must say. Rips his shirt off, does the double bicep pose in Chris Jericho's face, laughs and says, you deserved it, you stole the title. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means from Tyson. It was bizarre. I don't think Mike Tyson had even bullet points to go off of. I'm assuming he was just told, go out there, get in Chris Jericho's face and brawl, because that's what it looked like. But then this is, like I said, this is when the segment went really downhill for me. Look, I really, really enjoyed the Inner Circle pep rally. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I thought the comedy there was well done. And you had the shirts that said Stadium Stampede winners, and of course they didn't win, but they had boxes of them. That was fun. But when Tyson and his weird friend came out and they get into a brawl, Tyson, not so much Belfort and Evans and Cejudo, they had the good mean face on and they look serious, and of course they're legitimate. So, I mean, just having that legitimacy in the ring is great. But Tyson and this other guy, it looked like it was a joke to them. And just something was off. Now, I don't really want to speculate as to what that was. I saw some people say Mike Tyson was intoxicated. Look, I don't, allegedly, of course, I must say, but I don't think he was. I mean, he looks in great shape at the moment, and Mike Tyson, by all accounts, has been sober for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, he's struggled with addiction in the past. He's been honest about that. So I don't think he was intoxicated or under the influence or anything like that, but something was off. And that's not just with Tyson, that's with the other guy as well. And to me, it just seemed like they were playing wrestling. You know, this was a Saturday Night Live sketch to them. This wasn't professional wrestling. This wasn't serious. And again, that's not the slight on the UFC guys and the MMA guys, because to me, it looked like they were taking it very seriously. But yeah, it just looked like they were pretending. It was make-believe, and it wasn't serious. And it looks like, you know, from this, of course, they're going to do more going forward. So I think maybe AEW, maybe the Khans, maybe the EVPs will have to have a word with Iron Mike and basically just rein him in and say, okay, look, if you're going to do this, let's take it seriously. Because parts of that segment did not look seriously. Now, they had this mass brawl, and it looks like a couple of live rounds were thrown in there. I mean, I don't blame Jericho, the panda guy, punching him in the face. But you had loads of people come out, split it up, the entire roster. You had the EVPs come out, and including Cody and Omega and the Bucks, all try and break up, which again is good. It adds a sense of realism and a sense of legitimacy to it, like it was unscripted and it wasn't meant to happen, which of course we know it isn't. Of course, that was the intention of it to happening. But as I speculated yesterday, it looks to me that we're going to have a Mike Tyson AEW match in the future. I speculated at the time that it would likely have an opponent of Chris Jericho if he were to step into an AEW ring. It makes the most sense in terms of Jericho is the most mainstream name that AEW has, the one that really can transcend not just professional wrestling media, but mainstream media, sporting media. So that makes sense. And they also posted a clip, AEW did, Pronouns Pal, on social media afterwards of Mike Tyson saying, you know, this isn't over, Jericho. I'm going to come back and I'm going to kick your ass. I mean, that was a better promo than he cut in the ring. So if he'd have just come out and said that, that would have been, the segment would have got a big thumbs up from me. But like I said, it looks like Tyson's going to be back. He's in great shape. There's no doubt about that. You saw the shape that he's in last night and at Double or Nothing. We've seen the videos on social media of him training. There's rumors about a boxing comeback, now a wrestling comeback. So it looks like we're going to get a Tyson versus Jericho match, or perhaps, you know, these mixed martial artists, combat sports stars going up against the Inner Circle. So I guess the next question would be, when does that happen? Obviously, we know the next event is Fyter Fest, some point in the summer. I don't think they would do that for that show. It's not a big enough show. I'm not even sure if that show will be on pay-per-view. Previously, last year, it was just on BR Live. It was a BR Live exclusive, or maybe a Fight TV exclusive. So I don't think they would have that big a match, or that bigger, I'm not even sure I should call it a match, that bigger attraction, shall we call it, on that show. So I think most likely we're going to see it All Out. We know All Out's in September. So I think All Out makes more sense. Look, All Out's their AEW's WrestleMania equivalent. Okay, no, I'm not saying, before people jump on it, that All Out is the equivalent or the size or the grandeur of WrestleMania, but it's AEW's WrestleMania, isn't it? It's the event that kickstarted it all with All In, and it will be the second annual All Out event this year. So it would make sense to have the match there. But I do want to touch on one thing when I think about this whole Mike Tyson AEW angle and relationship that they apparently have struck it up. We criticize WWE. I know I have in the past, and I know lots of people have in the past, for using old-timers, celebrities, sports stars. I think of the criticism that Tyson Fury got for appearing and taking a spot of the boys last year at Crown Jewel, and every time I mentioned, could Tyson Fury come back? And there was rumors that Tyson Fury was scheduled for WrestleMania but couldn't appear due to the situation the world is in at the moment. And a lot of people going, thank God Tyson Fury did not appear. I hate it when these sports stars come in that they can't wrestle, they can't work. It's taking a spot from the boys, and we're getting old timers in, taking spots from the boys. People are very quick to jump and criticize WWE for it. So I think there should be a sense of impartialness, if that's a word. I think people should be impartial when it comes to this. And I think, those same people, if they're going to criticize WWE for it, they certainly should take the same approach to AEW. And in my opinion, I don't have a problem with it. I've never had a problem with it. I've never had a problem with Tyson Fury appearing for WWE. I've never had a problem with sports stars crossing over or whatever, because it makes sense. And it makes sense here for Mike Tyson to work an AEW match. AEW is looking for that Sports Center moment. They're looking for the Sports Illustrated article and retweet and whatever. They're looking for the TMZ plug. Okay? Ariel Helwani, famed MMA journalist, probably one of the most or more famous MMA journalists out there, associated, of course, with UFC and Bellator, etc., etc. He's got, thousands or maybe 1 million followers on Twitter. He's part of ESPN, and he's got his own famous YouTube channel, all of that good stuff. He retweeted last night, or he posted the video of Mike Tyson, Henry Cejudo, Vitor Belfort, Rashad Evans getting into it with Chris Jericho in the Inner Circle on AEW, and mentioned AEW by name on TNT. And thousands of people that aren't interested in pro wrestling, or maybe the famed lapsed fan of professional wrestling that the professional wrestling companies are desperate to bring back in, saw a clip of AEW for the first time that they either weren't aware of the brand, they weren't aware of the program, or they just didn't care for pro wrestling. They saw it last night and they might go, tell you what, Mike Tyson appearing in the ring, along with Henry Cejudo, which we don't know his future at the moment with the UFC. We don't know if he's going to come back and fight again. He probably will. It's a negotiating tactic, I think. But again, it's mainstream, or at least sports mainstream coverage for AEW, so it makes the most sense. Now, I've seen people criticizing this angle, not for the reasons I've mentioned, but more that it's a rehash of the 1998 Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mike Tyson brawl from Monday Night Raw. And it's difficult to argue against that, to be honest. It is very difficult to argue against that, considering, it was essentially the same. Obviously, you didn't have the exact same circumstances and about WrestleMania, and Tony Khan wasn't out there announcing what Mike Tyson's role at All Out was going to be later on this year, and then you had Jericho interrupt. It wasn't exactly the same. The premise of it was the same. You had Jericho and Tyson brawling. You had the moment that people are going to see on the news and people are going to be talking about for the foreseeable future, and arguably, it's probably the biggest mainstream coverage and moment in AEW short history at the moment. Let's be honest. I mean, it's definitely the most news coverage I would have thought that they would have gotten to this point. So from that point, it's a success. It's a success. You can't argue against it. Is it like 10 years too late when I've preferred to see Chris Jericho and Mike Tyson in 2010 as opposed to 2020? I think even in 2010 it might have been a bit too late, to be honest with you. But, Mike Tyson looks great. Mike Tyson looks great. He's in the news. These combat sports athletes are in the news. And it puts AEW firmly in the limelight at a time where professional wrestling is getting a bit of a black eye for continuing with these events, these empty arena shows. So more power to AEW from this. In terms of having the feud stem from a guest host spot on Monday Night Raw 10 years ago in a separate company on a separate program, that, let's be honest, a lot of people wouldn't have even watched that show back then, let alone no one's been clamoring for that Chris Jericho Mike Tyson feud 10 years after the fact. So is that the best way to kickstart this feud? I didn't know if that's the best way to do it. I'd have preferred it if Jericho just came out and said, look, we lost at the weekend at the Stadium Stampede match, and I blame that on Mike Tyson. He took my focus off of planning for that match. All I could hear about was people talking about Mike Tyson this, Mike Tyson that. Mike Tyson is going to be appearing there. When it was the Inner Circle, when it was Le Champion that was main eventing the show and stealing the headlines that should have been in all these articles and in all of these papers and on all of these websites, but instead it was Mike Tyson. That for me would have been a much better rationale than, hey, remember Raw 10 years ago? Raw, the thing that, the other company does, and you can watch every Monday night on a separate cable network. Yeah, Raw. Remember that? Remember I used to be in Raw? Remember we used to be WWE? I don't know if that's the best way to go about it necessarily. And like I said, in terms of Mike Tyson getting in the ring, he looks great. Can he work a match though? Physically, what does that entail? Perhaps Jericho says, you know what, I'm going to step into your world and I'm going to embarrass you. You stepped into my world and embarrassed me. I'm going to step into your world and embarrass you. Let's have a boxing fight, something like that. Or they could do a similar cinematic style match and have the Inner Circle against these combat sport legends. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And I think that's something they could do, and it could come off well and not be just a massive car crash, like a little bit like that segment was slowly turning into last night. So, hey, a match is going to happen. In my opinion, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it as long as they take it seriously. Now, that was the only thing that irked me a little bit last night was it came off as, hey, let's do it's an SNL segment. It's an SNL sketch. We're playing pro wrestling. It's all flexing and body. No, okay, let's treat it seriously. You can make good money here. You can make good headlines and you can get yourself in the press, in the media, and it benefits everyone all round. I don't have a problem with AEW bringing someone like Mike Tyson in. To me, it's a no-brainer for a fledgling company. People can say all they want, but, I love Orange Cassidy, but initially out of the gates, it's not gonna turn the dial, is it? Unfortunately, it is what it is. Mike Tyson versus Jericho is going to grab headlines and grab eyeballs. Then you can see, people can come in and see a Jungle Boy, an MJF, and that's who they'll stay for. That's just how, professional wrestling has worked and always will work for the longest time. But as I mentioned, I don't have a problem with it, but it's not, of course, just about my opinion. What's your opinion? What did you think of the Chris Jericho Mike Tyson segment last night? Pros, cons, what do you think a match is going to look like in the future between them two if we get the inevitable match between them? And where do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be at Fyter Fest? Is it going to be All Out? Is it going to be somewhere else? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and share this video, and of course subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds there'll be a subscribe button along with another video for you to watch, or you can go to our channel, subscribe there and take a look at all the videos we've posted on YouTube. Don't forget you can also follow Wrestle News 365 on all of the social media platforms on the screen right now. Twitter, we're at 365 Wrestle, and Facebook and Instagram, we're at Wrestle News 365. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.